It seems like every time a new book deal is announced lately, there's almost always news of the screen rights also being sold. When the rights to a book sell, it doesn't guarantee a book will appear on the screen, but it's usually a good gamble for studios to grab them in case the book does well. And there are a ton of books that are movies that now have successfully been adapted for film and television, going way back to the start of moving pictures. Before we start, subscribe to be notified for new videos, like and comment to support Movielytics. And now let's get back to the list. The Draytons David, Steph, and their son Billy live in a small Maine town. One night a ferocious storm hits the area, damaging their house. The storm is accompanied by a strange mist the following morning. David and Billy and their neighbor Brent Norton go into town and find themselves trapped in a grocery store with several other people. There they discover that the mist contains something frightening and intent on killing humans. Robert Neville, Will Smith, is a scientist who was unable to stop the spread of the terrible virus that was incurable and man-made in this post-apocalyptic action thriller. Immune, Neville is now the last human survivor in what is left of New York City and perhaps the world. For 3 years, Neville has faithfully sent out daily radio messages, desperate to find any other survivors who might be out there. But he is not alone. 127 Hours is the true story of mountain climber Aaron Ralston's remarkable adventure to save himself after a fallen boulder crashes on his arm and traps him in an isolated canyon in Utah. Over the next 5 days, Ralston examines his life and survives. Bruno, an 8-year-old boy from Berlin, Germany, is moved with his mother, elder sister, SS Commander father to a countryside in Europe where his father powers over a concentration camp for Jews. Bruno went exploring one day and befriended a child his age named Shmuel. Shmuel was a Jew. The boy became good friends until Bruno was scheduled to move to a new location. A serial killer in the San Francisco Bay Area taunts police with his letters and cryptic messages. We follow the investigators and reporters in this lightly fictionalized account of the true 1970s case as they search for the murderer, becoming obsessed with the case. Based on Robert Graysmith's book, the movie's focus is the lives and careers of the detectives and newspaper people. On the day that Hurricane Katrina hits New Orleans, elderly Daisy Williams, née Fuller, is on her deathbed in a New Orleans hospital. At her side is her adult daughter, Caroline. Daisy asks Caroline to read to her aloud the diary of Daisy's lifelong friend, Benjamin Button. Benjamin's diary recounts his entire extraordinary life, the primary unusual aspect of which was his aging backwards, being diagnosed with several aging diseases at birth and thus given little chance of survival, but who does survive and gets younger with time. Best-selling novelist Paul Sheldon is on his way home from his Colorado hideaway after completing his latest book, when he crashes his car in a freak blizzard. Paul is critically injured, but is rescued by former nurse Annie Wilkes, Paul's #1 fan, who takes Paul back to her remote house in the mountains, without bothering to tell anybody. Unfortunately for Paul, Annie is also a head case. When she discovers that Paul has killed off the heroine in her favorite novels, her reaction leaves Paul shattered. Michael Blomkvist is a disgraced journalist who is asked by a wealthy industrialist to write a biography on his family. But what he really wants Blomkvist to do is to find out what happened to his niece, who went missing 40 years ago. At first, Blomkvist isn't interested, until the man offers to help him clear his name. On a fall night in 2003, Harvard undergrad and computer programming genius Mark Zuckerberg sits down at his computer and heatedly begins working on a new idea. In a fury of blogging and programming, what begins in his dorm room soon becomes a global social network and a revolution in communication. A mere 6 years and 500 million friends later, Mark Zuckerberg is the youngest billionaire in history, but for this entrepreneur, success leads to both personal and legal complications. In Canada, a writer visits the Indian storyteller Pai Patel and asks him to tell his life story. Pai tells the story of his childhood in Pondicherry, India, and the origin of his nickname. One day, his father, a zoo owner, explains that the municipality is no longer supporting the zoo and he has hence decided to move to Canada, where the animals the family owns would also be sold. They board on a Japanese cargo ship with the animals, and out of the blue, there is a storm, followed by a shipwrecking. Pi survives in a lifeboat with a zebra, an orangutan, a hyena, and a male Bengal tiger nicknamed Richard Parker. They are adrift in the Pacific Ocean, with aggressive hyena and Richard Parker getting hungry. Pi needs to find a way to survive.